Are you ready? Okay, so what's collective knowledge?
Think of it as a combination of teleportation and time travel.
Wow.
Time travel.
Time travel.
Hello, welcome to First Penguin. This program invites the CEO of startups to talk about their worldview and future prospects. I'm Ito from FINOLAB.
My name is Masakazu Masujima from Morihama and Matsumoto.
Today's guest is Mr. Adam D'iAngelo, CEO of Quora, a Q&A platform with a mission to share and grow the world's knowledge. Mr. D'Angelo, thank you for coming today. I'm very honored to be with you.
Thank you for having me.
Could you tell us what Quora is?
Sure. So Quora is a platform where people can share their knowledge. So anyone can come to Quora and ask a question, and we go and figure out who we think are the people who are going to be best at answering that question. And then we take those answers, and over time we build up a big database of answers to all of these questions for anyone in the future who's going to have the same questions.
So currently, how many countries Quora operating?
We have users in almost every country in the world. We support over 18 languages right now, and it covers almost every country where there's internet access has people using Quora. There's 300 million monthly unique visitors to the platform.
Yeah, actually, I tried to use Quora yesterday, but I was a little bit shy. And what kind of question would be suitable? This question might be too easy or something. What's the average or most, or suitable question for Quora is?
So you can really ask any question that you want. A lot of people, though, they don't actually ask their own questions. They'll just read the answers they'll wait for someone else to ask the question. If they're shy, they can just wait until someone else asks the question, and then they don't have to worry about putting their name associated with it. You can also ask a question without attaching your name if you want, so that no one will know who asked it.
It's a very interesting platform. There are a lot of people, involved with the platform. What is your view of the Quora? What kind of world you'd like to create within the Quora?
I think that if you think about what is different about the world today from thousands of years ago, a lot of it is that society has access to more knowledge, and that's a lot of what's enabled civilization to develop to the point of where it has today. But as much information as you can find on the internet right now, we think there's actually a lot more out in people's heads. So all these people out in the world are learning new things every day. They have careers, they have problems that they need to solve in their lives. And most of the time, that knowledge that they acquire just stays trapped in their head, and no one else has access to it. And so, but at the same time, those people, they really like to share knowledge if you can connect them with someone who has the right question for them. So Quora is kind of a matchmaking process between the people who have knowledge and the people who want it. And we think that if we can do that, we can kind of greatly increase the amount of knowledge that society has access to, and we think that will help advance society over time.
Okay, so what is the difference between like a encyclopedia, like Wikipedia, question and answer, and your platform?
Yeah, so Wikipedia, I really like Wikipedia. It's a great way to summarize knowledge that's already out there in other sources. Quora is a way to get new knowledge onto the internet, right? So everything in Wikipedia has to have a citation in some other source, like a newspaper. Quora is a way for people who have this knowledge in their head, for that knowledge to get onto the internet in the first place. And maybe in someday a Wikipedia article might cite a Quora answer, but Quora is kind of like a primary source of information, and Wikipedia is like a secondary source.
Okay, that's very interesting. And probably Quora is more like a personalized thing.
Yeah, right. So on Quora, we have people's real names attached to the answers. Wikipedia is all anonymous, and so Wikipedia works very well when you want to get some facts about something. If you want an opinion or a judgment, or you want to know what do experts think about this, Quora is a way for people to share that knowledge. But we see it as complementary with Wikipedia. It's not really an alternative.
So you're more like a community-based and managing the community, right? So how, the community is always difficult to manage, I guess. So how do you manage the community?
Yeah, so we do a lot of different things. One of the things we noticed when we started the product, we looked at other places where people share their knowledge. And in the English internet, it was a lot of forums, a lot of web pages, and a lot of blogs. And one of the things we noticed was that any of these platforms that would get very big in English, the quality would tend to get low. And I think a lot of it was that it was difficult to manage a community as it gets bigger and bigger. It's difficult to make sure that it stays relevant to everyone, and it's difficult to keep the quality high. And so we decided from the very beginning we're going to be hyper-focused on quality control and on relevance. So for quality control, we use a lot of machine learning to figure out which content is high quality and which is not. We let users vote on each other's answers. And so if we have a user who we know is an expert on a subject and they vote on an answer about that subject, that's a sign to us that it's probably a good answer. And then we also do some manual moderation of the content. We have a set of policies that we enforce. And so these it's three things all working together: the machine learning, the users voting, and the manual policy enforcement. All of those together add up to quality control.
Okay, so for example, some users tend to be like, very aggressive, or probably speak something bad. So what will your platform do for that?
So it depends. We have a policy called "Be nice, be respectful," and that means that people have to be respectful to other users. And so if someone is behaving in a way that we think is against the policy, other users could report them, and we have people who will go and look at the reports and look at also machine learning that tries to detect this. And if it's against the policy, then the user might get a warning, they might get restricted, they might, if they continue to behave in a way that's driving other people off the platform, then we might ban them.
So that is something that is different from like a censorship policy. So what is the difference between the censorship and your, policy, control?
I think that there's a lot of, we try to be very objective about what the policies are and how we enforce them. I think when people use the word censorship, they think about kind of random, like abuse of power by the moderator.
Arbitral.
Yeah, and so we try to have a set of consistent policies and stick to them. But Quora is not we're not trying to make sure that everyone can contribute at all costs. We're okay with setting some rules and enforcing those rules. And so there's always other platforms that people can go to if they're not allowed on Quora.
Okay.
So Quora was launched about 10 years ago, right? And what was the motivators for you to start Quora?
So there were a lot of things kind of all came together for me. I really like knowledge. I like learning. I like reading. I like answering other people's questions. And I felt like just looking around at the internet, there was always this dream that the internet is going to connect everyone and that's going to allow everyone to share. And technically anyone could set up a website, but it was difficult for people, and it ended up in these very low quality outcomes. So you have these platforms that let people share, but they'd always get very low. And I think most people at the time, they felt that those low quality platforms were sort of an inevitability. Like if you allow everyone in the world to contribute to something, then it's not going to be high quality. You need to have sort of very restricted contribution to ensure quality. But I think my background and just having a different perspective on the space, we thought that the reason these platforms ended up low quality was actually a function of the way they were designed. That was actually an outcome you would expect given the incentives that they had created and the way they shaped their product. And so I felt like if we came along and we could address these problems and really motivate people to produce higher quality content and reward the best content, then that would get to just a much better outcome for everyone, and then a lot more knowledge could get shared in the world. I talked to my roommate from college after we started the company, and I showed him the product, and he said, "Oh, I remember in college you talked about the same idea," and I had actually forgotten about it personally. Like I think I have a lot of ideas, and I think a lot about a lot of things, but I think that just showed that I had been thinking about it for a long time.
Okay, so Adam, your service is about how to manage the community. When it comes to the community, I always, it always reminds me of the startup community and startup ecosystem. And you're at the heart of the, startup ecosystem, Mountain View, Silicon Valley. So let us talk about something that is related to the startup ecosystem. Used to be the first CTO of the Facebook, and you are kind of like a guru of the startup community, right, in the Silicon Valley. So you have met a lot of young entrepreneurs so far, and you have assisted many of those. So just tell me about something that you have done so far to support the startup ecosystem in the Valley.
Yeah, let's see. So I got to know Kevin Systrom, who started Instagram a long time ago, and when he started the company, they ran into some scaling challenges. So they started to have a lot of people using the product, and their servers couldn't handle the load. And so he came and got some advice from me, and I helped him and helped them set up a system that would let them scale it for a while. And then later on, he let me invest in the company. And so that's a kind of example of, I think a lot of interactions like this happen in Silicon Valley. There's kind of these loose social relationships that turn into being very helpful for people who are starting companies.
Okay, so you're in a part of like engineer community. Probably, in the Valley, there are a lot of like community, like venture capitalists, engineers, like more like marketing. A lot of people are just going and communicate. So probably, you can explain that, how the community are formed and how that kind of like interaction actually happened in the Valley.
Yeah, it's really loose. So those different communities overlap a lot, right? A lot of the engineers are also friends with the investors and friends with the marketing people, and so it's, people have parties and they invite their friends to the party, and at the party you meet some other people who might end up being, relevant to you professionally later on. I think I met Kevin Systrom at a fraternity party at Stanford when he was there in college, and I was working at Facebook, and so I don't remember exactly how, but someone invited me to that party, and I got to know him there, and then we just kept in touch, and later on it was, he called me to just get some advice.
So people always help with each other and give some advice on how to, for example, like, on the technical side or, funding side and so on and so on. So probably each company has their own, like, non-disclosure thing. So how that non-disclosure discipline work in the Valley?
All companies have normal non-disclosure agreements, but there's kind of a tacit understanding that it's okay to share a little bit. If it's, employees, they use their judgment. Sometimes they'll share things that they're not supposed to share. And, I know that some of my employees are probably doing that, and so other companies might find out things about Quora that are technically against the agreement, but the employees from other companies are doing the same thing. And so Quora is benefiting a lot from what we learned from other companies. And so by being part of the Silicon Valley ecosystem, you sort of like tolerate a little more sharing than I think, legally you would be allowed to if everyone followed the rules 100% of the time. But that's actually just good for the whole ecosystem because you benefit more than it hurts you.
Yeah, I totally understand. Like, it's more like an open environment and people are willing to share information that actually, expands the ecosystem and so on. So, but, that's a very big difference, in Japanese, ecosystem. People are trying to, hide things and so on and so on. It's more like it, is it something like a cultural thing or, more like it, what makes that difference?
It's hard to say. I think it's a cultural thing. Even on the East Coast in America, there's less of this, and that's one of the advantages of Silicon Valley. I guess from what I've heard, like in Japan, people, they didn't used to pirate music a lot, right? So I think there's just like a culture of taking the rules seriously. In California, in America, just everyone downloaded tons of illegal music, right? And nobody cared. And 10 people got sued out of the whole country, and it's just an expectation that it's a normal thing to do. So I think there is some deep difference there in just how I think how people think about rules. But it also, there are things that companies in Silicon Valley do want to keep secret, and they're just very clear with employees, like, hey, this is secret. We're not going to share this, and that's part of the understanding. But I think because there's a lot of the CEOs of the different companies, they're friends with each other, and a lot of the companies are not usually competing head on. So Quora, one of the things that's very important to us is personalization. So that means figuring out who is the person who's going to best be able to answer a question. And then once an answer is written, who are the people that the answer is going to be most interesting to. And we've exchanged a lot of knowledge with Netflix about personalization. Netflix is trying to figure out what movies are relevant to you. And and that's very important to Netflix's business. And but it's not bad for Netflix if Quora learns what Netflix is doing, and then Quora gets better at personalizing Quora. Maybe Netflix doesn't want Disney to get better at personalization, but Netflix is happy to sort of exchange learnings with Quora. And so a lot of this, that's just an example of how these benefits happen much more than the costs.
The valid ecosystem sounds very, or perfect, fantastic. I was wondering how people can get in that ecosystem. So, or when you were a high school student, so already you developed some music recommendation software with Mr. Mark Zuckerberg, and to gain some one or some more honor or something. So even when you were a high school student, did you have some plan to someday launch your startups or to get in that startup ecosystem?
I didn't have specific plans. I knew that I liked programming and I liked making. I remember in high school I worked on some forum software. So I knew that I liked programming. I liked making things, especially internet products. And then in college, I learned that the real place to do that is in Silicon Valley. I actually think this is less true today than it was back then. When I was in college, you had to go to Silicon Valley. That was where everything was. Today, Silicon Valley, it's gotten very expensive to live there, and there are some other reasons why the knowledge is getting distributed broadly. Products like Quora and other products mean that people outside of Silicon Valley can get access to a lot of the knowledge that used to only be able to get access to in person. But back to your question, I think my interest kind of evolved over time, and I've never had a specific plan. I have a sense of where I feel like I can make a big impact, and I try to go toward that.
Just let me just touch upon something related to the like information sharing thing. We have China next to the Japan, and China's startup ecosystem is something different, but it's more like Silicon Valley style. What do you think about the Chinese startup ecosystem as related to the Silicon Valley ecosystem?
I'm not an expert on that topic. I went to China last year to just sort of learn about the Chinese ecosystem and exchange knowledge with people who are running the Chinese internet companies. One of the things that's interesting, I think a lot of Chinese internet companies, you can learn as a Silicon Valley company, there are things you can learn that you couldn't learn from other people in Silicon Valley, because the ecosystem played out differently in China. There's different companies that are in different areas, and the products have been built up a little bit differently. And so by studying the Chinese internet ecosystem and comparing it to Silicon Valley, you can start to generalize a little. If all you're looking at is the Western internet market, you don't know if the reason why one company succeeded is that maybe the person running the company was just really hardworking, or maybe they made some important decision, or maybe there was the competition was weak. There's a lot of different factors, but if you can look at multiple examples of markets, then you can start to generalize a little bit. So I thought that was very interesting, and also the people in China, they were happy to share a lot of their learnings with us. So Quora, we incorporated some things that we learned from Chinese companies, and they learned from us, and so yeah, I think there's a similar kind of spirit to Silicon Valley there.
Okay, very interesting. Can I just have some Chinese company that you think is impressive, for example?
Yeah, I think ByteDance.
Oh yeah,
is impressive.
personalization. Yeah, I think you should answer that. Right? Yeah. Could you just
Explain why?
Yeah.
Yeah. So ByteDance has really done well at using machine learning to sort of break into being a big internet company. And that's the Chinese internet market is very, very competitive. But by riding this wave of machine learning getting better and better, they were able to really get to this incredible scale that very few other consumer internet companies have gotten big recently, as the market has gotten more competitive. But they've been able to do that.
And you are also known as a very successful angel, and you're investing to about more than 30 startups, and including Instagram or Asana and Snapchat. Sorry. So, what are the criteria for startups when you are investing?
So I look at a lot of different factors, and ultimately I'm trying to make a judgment about, like, does this company have the potential to get really big, and how likely do I think that is? And so usually I'm investing in companies where I already know the person who started the company, or I know someone else who's investing, and I rely a lot on my relationships, and I have people who I trust a lot who will recommend companies, or people who have over time they've established a track record of I know this person's a good investor themselves. I think a lot about the market the companies are in, and so how big do I think that market can be? Is it a market where if you get big, then you'll be able to make a lot of money, and just how much demand do I see for the product? Like, is this something? If I imagine, hey, let's imagine this company just executed really well and this product became really great. Like, how would that play out? And based on all those factors, I'll try to make a judgment. But there's a lot of risk and a lot of luck in angel investing. One successful investment can pay for a lot of other companies that fail, and so you don't have to be perfect. You can be wrong a lot of the time and still do well.
So you are also a board member of OpenAI, right? And you mentioned about machine learning, and so could you tell us a little more details about how machine learning or AI works in Quora?
Yeah, so OpenAI is a research organization, and they're sort of pushing the state of the art further and further forward in machine learning. Quora, we're applying machine learning to make a product that lets people share their knowledge better. So an example of where we use machine learning is when someone comes to Quora and asks a question, we need to figure out who we show that question to. Who's going to be the best person, ideally who's the best person in the world who can answer that question. And users help us out. Users tell us what topics they know about. If they have a PhD, they will be able to list that. And so we have a lot of information to use in figuring out who should answer a question. But we have millions of questions and millions of people who can write answers. And we need to figure out who's the best. And so we will look at things like the text of the question and try to really understand what the question means, to understand what kind of person would be best at answering it. And then we'll look at the topics that people know about, and we'll be able to make inferences like, hey, this person, they know about quantum physics. And so that probably means they would be able to answer a question maybe about quantum field theory, which is more specific. And maybe that means they'll also be able to answer a question about physics in general. And so we have machine learning algorithms that kind of look at the topics and the expertise that we have among our users and figure out based on all the answers people have ever written in the past, all the things they mentioned in those answers, which person is going to be the ideal person to answer this question.
Can I ask you something about artificial general intelligence? So it's a kind of like an interesting topic. So
I would like to know, what's your thoughts about the AI and machine learning in the future? So, or maybe like 10 years later or 30 years later. So, what's the ideal world for you, or with machine learning or AI? So currently, Quora use the machine learning. Who will be the best person to answer these questions? But if machine learning or AI learns more and more and more, the person's or people's knowledge is still needed.
I think people are always going to be the source of a lot of knowledge, right? So people are out in the world every day experiencing things, and it's a lot of things that no AI has access to. And so I think that people will always be an important source of knowledge. Today, when people write answers on Quora, we use machine learning to figure out how good they are and who should see them. But I can imagine a future as AI gets better and better where the AI is asking a lot of the questions, and then it will synthesize knowledge from all the answers. So it'll be able to combine answers and summarize them and aggregate them together into just then being able to write a lot of answers itself. But I still think humans will be the source of most of the knowledge, because ultimately it's their experiences out in the real world that are the source of a lot of knowledge.
Yeah, I saw some, video about multiple agent hide and seek, product, probably on the OpenAI.
So sorry, the video about
hide and seek and hide. Oh,
OpenAI research.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very interesting for me, and it's kind of like very open-ended thing, probably based on the world model or something like that. So, how, it's kind of like, artificial general intelligence thing. So, probably you can just explain what the, future, or what the, artificial general intelligence means, and what the future of the, artificial general intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think when people say artificial general intelligence, they mean software that is going to be able to do almost anything that a human can do, if in the sense that a human can learn new tasks easily and adapt to new situations. And a lot of the machine learning that we have today is a little more narrow to specific tasks. And so I think there's a lot of reasons to think that software is going to get to this point. It might take 20 years, it might take 30 years, but there's not really any fundamental limit that is meaning that software is not going to get there. And so that's going to be a very different world. That's going to mean that almost anything that humans are doing today, especially tasks that are almost all electronic based, you're going to be able to do that with software, and it doesn't mean there won't be anything else for humans to do. I think there will be a set of things that you still want a human to do, but it'll create an incredible amount of economic value when we get to that point. So just like the GDP is going to grow a massive amount because of all this work that you currently are limited by the size of the labor force. Now you're not going to be limited that way. And so a lot of things are probably going to change about society as we go toward that. And so I think it's very important that when we get closer, that a lot of thought is put into figuring out how to make sure that it benefits everyone, this new world that we get into.
At least you like to build this direction should be the machine learning or AI should be used or not.
So like what direction do I think machine learning should be moving in?
Yeah, because in Japan, it's not only about AI, but blockchain or other technical theme. People always talk about, one day AI do everything and the human is gone or something. And other people says, or AI doesn't, or cannot do anything or something. So, I think both of them are not correct. So, or some direction, I believe you can see the direction so that I cannot see. So I just would like to know what do you think about the direction about the technology?
Yeah. I mean, so first of all, I think it's going to be a very long time before you get to human level AI. But in the interim, I think that it's kind of a false choice between AI doing everything and humans, AI doing nothing. And so I think a lot of the most interesting applications of AI is where it enables humans to do more, right? So with Quora, because of machine learning, we can let people share knowledge a lot more efficiently. And then that gives people more to do and more benefits as well. And the better the machine learning gets at matching people with the right questions, the more knowledge we can share and the more humans are involved as well, right? And so there's not usually this kind of trade-off where you're just choosing like either the machine or the human. It's usually, even when you have, say, like a factory where you install a lot of robots, you have to think about, well, who's producing those robots, who's designing their algorithms in the first place, who's supervising the robots in the factory, and so a lot of the interesting innovations these days, and I think for the future, are going to be figuring out how do you efficiently organize so that humans can do what they're good at and the machine learning can do what it's good at.
I see. So Quora is exactly a kind of first step for you.
Yeah.
So at last, so before coming here, we went to our sauna, and you said the collective knowledge is time traveling and transportation, right? So could you tell us why so? Why did you say so?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess I think about, imagine you could go back in time. What would you use that technology for? And I think there's a lot of things you could imagine doing, but I think one of the first things you want to do if you could go back to, say, like the Middle Ages, is you just want to hear what people have to say. You want to hear how they think and ask them some questions. And if from here on we have everyone sharing their knowledge on Quora or on another platform, in some ways, in the future, it's going to be almost as good as if you could have done time travel, right, to get back to here. And so, I don't know if time travel will ever be possible, even in a world with AGI. I think may not ever happen. And so it's kind of like the best substitute you can get for it is to just be able to like find out what people were saying, what they were thinking, and benefit from all their knowledge. So that's how we think about it.
Thank you. So today is a very precious time. I really enjoyed. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you.